Hey guys, Phil Baumhardt here. So for today's video, I've got another museum collection to show you. So a few years ago, I had the opportunity to go to the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto, Canada. They've actually got a really great collection of European arms and armor from all different ages, from the Dark Ages all the way up to and past the Renaissance. So if you have the opportunity to check it out, do so. You will not be disappointed. But I just wanted to show you some of the photos I took of the Viking Age artifacts that they had. They don't have a whole lot, but what they do have is actually pretty interesting. So I tried to get some close-up photos and photos from different angles just to give myself better research material. But so I wanted to take the time to show you what I found and share some of the things that I learned. So let's see what they got. So here's a sword that was found in London, England, and the hilt is described as being typical of those from Denmark. This is one of the few swords that I've ever come across whose handle appears to be intact. So it's interesting to see the slight palm swell in the center of the grip, and also what appears to be leather wrap around the grip itself. And obviously it's rare for these kind of organic materials to survive to the present day. So on the guard there's a faint remnant of some copper inlay, and the blade itself has a large inscription carved into the fuller. The point of the sword, as is typical of the Viking Age, is very spatulate in shape, designed for hacking and slashing over stabbing. And here's a look at the large pommel, and from looking at it, it appears to be comprised of two pieces. The second sword is of a later style with a more tapering point, better suited to thrusting, that developed in Europe around 900 AD. You can see that the crossguard is slightly thinner and longer, providing better protection for certain strikes. There is also a more elaborate copper inlay on the guard and pommel. The pommel itself also appears to be made of one piece, with indentations that mimic the old manner of pommel construction. It is also notably smaller in size than the first sword. The blade still has a shallow, broad fuller with a faint inscription at the fore of the blade. The edge of the sword is in very good condition as well, and it even bears some battle damage. These particularly shaped notches are unmistakable. This is what it looks like when two edges come into contact with each other, as my own sparring swords have identically shaped notches. This one too looks like it has battle damage, coincidentally at the same part of the blade where one would parry another sword. The battle axe included in the display was described as being of an East Norwegian type, dating to between 900 and 1025 AD. From this high angle we can see how thin the blade is, denoting it as a purpose-built fighting axe rather than a woodworking tool. The iron is heavily corroded, and you can see that the material in the eye of the axe was so thin that it ate all the way through it. And from this angle we get a good view of the hammer pole, which, though small, is interesting to note that it's flattened and squared. So next to the Viking artifacts, they have a separate display of Anglo-Saxon and Frankish weapons, and one of my favorite artifacts of the entire museum is this Anglo-Saxon skirmish axe. This particular one has a clip point that could be described by many as a stereotypical buoy pattern, and this type of blade shape is a simple derivation from the traditional broken back skirmish axe of the Anglo-Saxons. All it takes is a little more hammering on the edge side and you get that clip point. It was really interesting to me to see how thin the tang was in comparison to the thickness of the spine, as these dimensions are rarely shown in reference photos, so it was great for me to be able to see these in person. It's slightly difficult to discern, but there appears to be some sort of decorative engraving on the flat of the blade, and it also looks like the grind goes halfway up the blade, similar to a saber grind or Scandi grind. And here we have the remnants of an Anglo-Saxon shield boss that was dated to around 500 AD. From that same time period, they also have a Frankish throwing axe called a Francisca. You can see that this is significantly thicker than the Viking axe, and they state that there would be little difference between an axe used by a woodsman and an axe used in battle. They also had two spearheads, one of which was an Anglo-Saxon head, presumably used for throwing. And the larger one was of Frankish origin, and on closer examination we can see striations in the iron, which looks to me to be the result of the material being drawn out in the forging process. So this is real neat to see up close and personal. Alright, well hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you want to take another look at some of the photos that I took, I've got them all uploaded to blackheartforge.blogspot.com for your own research and study. I got a link in the description box if you ever want to check those out. Whenever I'm making a historic based blade of any kind, I try to keep it historically accurate, or at least base it in history and see what we actually did in antiquity. So this kind of first-hand research is very important to me. There's not really a whole lot of it that I can find either online or in books. You know, the information is kind of few and far between, and photos aren't always that great. So that's why I felt it was important to share this with you guys. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And if you want to see more of these kind of museum videos, subscribe. And then let me know in the comments that you like this kind of content, and I'll be sure to try to make more of it for you. So you can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook. And I've got an Etsy web store where I'm selling knives and different things that I've made. So you can help support the Forge that way. I've also got a merch store now through Teespring. That should be below the video as well. So I got stickers, shirts, that kind of thing if you want to check those out. As always, I appreciate the support. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, be more Viking.